This is the NF4GA repeater.
Welcome, ladies, to the YL OpNet. This is Catherine, AAC4YL, Net Control for this evening's net. We meet every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Echolink ALARA Conference node. Be sure to invite all YLs you know to join us. We do ask that only YLs or licensed young lady ham radio operators check in and participate. The purpose of this net is to encourage you to become and stay active with amateur radio, help each other improve our operating knowledge and skills, and have fun. For more ham fun between weekly nets, check out the YL OpNet Facebook group. During the net, be sure to join us in the NFARL Do Drop In chat room by opening any web browser and going to nfarl.dodropin.org. Just put your call sign, name-call sign in the box and then click Log In. YLs who would like to check in, please give us your call sign, name, and current location, and don't forget that there is a 3 to 4 second delay when transmitting through Echolink. This is Catherine, AC4YL. We will now begin taking check-ins. Please call now.
Kilo Alpha 7, Sierra Kilo Yankee, Sky and Gardner, Washington.
KC9ZHV, Lauren in Albany, Illinois.
Dawn, WA4YL, in Hudson, Florida.
Brenda, KC1EEO, New Haven, Connecticut.
KC8PKY, Linda, Knox, Indiana.
Kilo Alpha 1 United Lima November.
Victor Alpha 3 Whiskey Hotel Uniform, Carroll, Hamilton, Ontario.
Kilo 2 Echo Zulu.
W5MQC, Michelle, Oklahoma.
KE0 CPI, K in Colorado.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with that round of check-ins. So far we have Sky, KA7SKY, joining us from Washington. Lauren, KC9ZHV, joining us from Illinois, and is kind enough to be streaming this net live this evening on YouTube. Dawn, WA4YL, checking in from Florida. Brenda, KC1EEO, joining us from Connecticut. Linda, KC8PKY, checking in from Indiana. Nisi, KA1ULN, joining us from Massachusetts. Carol, VA3WHU, joining us from Ontario this evening. Andrea, K2EZ, joining us, I'm going to venture a guess, New Jersey. Michelle, W5MQC, joining us from Oklahoma. KE0CPI, joining us from Colorado. Okay, let's see who else we have. If you have not checked in yet and you're a YL and would like to do so, please call now.
AE7MB, Margaret, Battleground, Washington.
KD8STB, Brenda, Clinton Township, Michigan.
Let me just clarify. I am in New Jersey, Texas, K2EZ.
Okay, fantastic. So also joining us this evening is Margaret, AE7MB from Washington, and Brenda, KD8SGB, joining us from Michigan this evening. Welcome back, Brenda. Glad to have you. And Andrea, got your correction on your state, and I had a feeling that was wrong. I knew you were traveling, so duh. Oh, one of those evenings. Okay. Good group. I think we have a few more gals that have joined us, so let's just see one more time if we have any other YLs who have not checked in, and then we'll go on into the net. So if you haven't checked in yet and would like to do so, please call now, AC4YL.
N2RJ, Rhea in New Jersey.
Kilo Bravo 4 Radio Mike, Rosemary, Texas.
Okay, awesome. We also have Rita in Q2RJ joining us from New Jersey, and Rosemary, KB4RM, joining us from Texas. So good evening, ladies, and any of you that are listening that have any mic trouble. If we missed you and you would like to check in and you're having audio issues, mic issues, just go ahead and type in the Echolink chat your call sign and your first name and where you're located, so we can get you in the check-in log for the net this evening. We'd love to make sure that we have you included. I do see Ann, W1AYL, has just joined us. So Ann, I have you in the log, so good evening to you. And Ann is located in New Hampshire. So try to keep an eye out for you in the Echolink as you pop in, but sometimes you fall down below where I can see you in the list, just because Echolink doesn't give enough space in that little window for all the gals that we have on here, which is awesome. So welcome, ladies, this evening. Hope everybody had a great week, and we're glad to have you back with us this evening. And tonight we have a wonderful guest speaker, Rhea in Q2RJ, who's going to educate us all about digital modes and operating using digital modes. So very excited about this presentation, as I have not really played with digital personally and have an interest in exploring the possibility. I have purchased a signal link to hook up with my old Yaesu FT840, and I did have it hooked up at one point and got it set up where it was somewhat receiving, although I wasn't able to get it fine-tuned to really make too much sense out of the CW coming across, but nevertheless it was a lot of fun as far as I got with it, and looking forward to some great info from Rhea this evening, as I'm sure you gals are. So without further ado, Rhea, if you are ready, we'd like to go ahead and pass the mic to you into RJ, AC4YL, and the net.
All right, this is N2RJ. Just wanted a quick audio check before I start, because I'm using a different mic than I usually am. How is this?
There's a very mild buzz, but not enough to keep us from hearing you clearly. So no problem, Rhea. Please go ahead.
Okay, well that's charger. iPad is on charger. I'll probably remove it. Anyway, so good evening, everyone. Doing our talk here on digital modes. So I'm gonna start off from the very beginning, assuming that nobody knows anything about digital modes, even though there are a lot of you who are on the digital modes. And we're going to cover basically two types of digital modes on HF. We're going to cover the conversational modes that you can use to rag chew, and we're also going to cover what we call the short QSO modes, where you can use them to make basic contacts, and these are affectionately known as the Joe Taylor modes because they're developed by Joe Taylor, K1JT. So, okay, so first of all, back in the I think 80s and 90s, there were not really much options to get on digital modes. You either purchased something called a TNC, which is a terminal node controller, which is basically a modem that connects to your radio, and the radio, the modem would actually take the signals from the computer, and actually many of the TNCs were intelligent computers, and then create audio tones, and these audio tones would then be sent over the air via your transceiver. Fast forward to the late 90s when we had enough computing power to put these in a sound card, where you can use the sound card to generate the tones. So instead of having a special piece of hardware that costs hundreds of dollars, or thousands of dollars, because some of them are expensive, you have your computer and your sound card, and you build a little interface, and you connect that to your rig, and then you are on the air. As a matter of fact, you don't even need to do that. You can actually just take the speaker output of your sound card and connect that to, hold that near the mic. A lot of people did that. So you have a lot of those digital modes. Anyway, that's the long and short of it, and we're at the point now where you have sound cards where it's gone back the way it was, but in a different twist now. You have external sound card interfaces using USB, such as the Signal Link, which is a very popular one, and then you have it being built into transceivers, such as the ICOM 7300, the ALARA K3, and also you have, I see Nisi put up my award with Flex Radio. I do a lot of work with Flex Radio, where the signal is transmitted digitally to Flex Radio, via something called DAX. All right, okay, so let me pause for reset. Okay, so now we covered the hardware, and let's see, what do you need for a digital mode? So the first thing you need a computer. You can use one that runs Windows, you can use one that runs Mac, you can use one that runs Linux. I use a Windows computer in my shack. I also have a Mac. I have two Macs, and I have one at work that I use too. But most of my digital mode operation is done from Windows. And to run it to your radio, you will need a sound card interface. It depends on your radio. So if you have a newer radio, such as an ICOM 7300, I believe the FT991, I believe Dawn could tell me about that radio because she has one. You just hook a USB cable to your computer, and then you go in the Windows control panel. Under the device manager, you'll see sound card devices, USB. It'll usually be called USB audio codec. You might have to install some drivers with your rig. So those may be downloadable from the manufacturer's website. If your radio does not have that, you're going to have to use an external interface, such as a Rig Blaster is a popular one. Signal Link is a popular one. It's less than $100 used, and a new one is about $100. And that one is very popular. I use that to do a lot of digital modes. So anyway, once you have that taken care of, and now I use a Flex radio, a Flex Signature Series radio, where it has something called DAX, called Digital Audio Exchange, where it creates sound card devices that are actually just digital streams that stream direct to the radio from the computer. So there's no analog signals being passed by, just digital data. Okay, So now you got that hardware out of the way. You're talking about your different modes and what you want to do. So until quite recently, the ARRL had a DXCC award for RTTY mode, radio teletype. And let's talk a little bit about radio teletype. Radio teletype it used to be one of the most commonly used digital modes in amateur radio. So when you heard about digital, usually you talk about RTTY. And a lot of the expeditions still use RTTY and use RTTY for contests. Now, RTTY actually goes back to the days where you had the teleprinter. So the mechanical teletype machine would receive, would be connected to a radio interface, and that radio interface would decode the tones sent over the radio. You have two tones. You have a mark and a space tone, and that is something that is sent via something called Baudot code, B-A-U-D-O-T, and that is a binary code that matches up to letters, and then those letters would be printed on the teleprinter. Those machines are big, and they require oil and maintenance, and they're heavy, and they shake up your house. Some hams still have them because they like the nostalgia. They like the smell of the oil. So I don't blame them. You know, it's like people who run tube equipment. They like the glow of the tube. They like the smell of the things burning. Can't blame them. So that's RTTY. Today we use computers. And a lot of the software used for really, there are a number of different software. A popular one is MMTTY. And MMTTY actually is written by a Japanese amateur, Makoto Mori, Juliet Echo 3 Hotel Hotel Tango. And I'm going to place a link in the chat so you can actually go ahead and then download the software and use that. The setup is a little complicated because you can use you can use different methods to send the RIDI. So this is an important thing with RIDI I should cover now. So because you're sending two tones, you're actually yes, thank you very much, Catherine. That is an old teletype machine. You'll find them in you used to find them in newsrooms, and if you have if you're in the New York area or you listen on online, I think it's like iHeartRadio or something. You listen to 1010 Winds AM. In the background, they'll have the sound of the teletype machine. It'll go like tick 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 tick. So it'll be continuously typing out the news. Okay, so you can do a radio teletype with a sound card, which is actually not the preferred method, but you can do that. That's called audio frequency shift keying, or AFSK. What that basically means is that your computer will generate audio tones, and those audio tones will be used, two audio tones, mark and space, and those audio tones will be used to generate characters. They'll be matched using the Baudot code. Another popular method is called FSK, which is frequency shift keying, where you have a RIDI serial interface that connects to your radio that actually would just basically key the radio and then shift the VFO to produce tones at the mark and space frequencies. Now what that would do is that would produce a cleaner signal, since you don't introduce the analog audio, and you don't have any distortion products. And you don't have distortion products basically means that you can't overdrive the audio from the computer into the radio, and then it gets distorted, and it creates things like intermodulation distortion beyond what the transmitter normally generates. Basically, in a nutshell, you know, without using a technical term, it creates a very clean signal. Now, the AFSK, actually, if you're using a software-defined radio such as a Flex or in a non-radio, I think even the ICOM 7300, you could basically use AFSK without problems and generate a clean signal because there is no analog path. So whether it goes through the Ethernet or the USB, you will not have a problem with generating a dirty signal. All right, so that's the RIDI, and you can configure the software. You have to set up your sound card, and you also have to set up a means to key the radio. So we all know push to talk means that you hold a microphone and you push the button to talk. While in digital mode, the computer has to key the radio to send it into transmit mode. And to send the radio into transmit mode, you must the computer will send a signal either over a serial port line, which on newer radios you actually use a USB signal, right? And to be quite honest, you don't have to concern yourself with the actual mechanics of how it's done. If you buy a sound card interface, it will set up a serial port that says PTT, and you could just set that up in the software under PTT. You set it to that serial port, and what the software will do is when it wants to transmit, it will then send a signal to that through the radio to key up, and then the radio will switch into transmit, and then the software will start generating your audio tones. So that's a little nuance there. Now the signal link does it different. I'm sure you heard of VOX, voice operated transmit, where you talk and then the radio would automatically switch into transmit. Your radio in the menu might have a VOX button, where you press the VOX button and then the radio will listen, basically listen for sound, and when it detects sound, it'll key itself into transmit. Well, the signal link by default operates that way. So once a signal link detects a signal on a sound card, on its internal sound card, which is a USB, it would actually key up into transmit, and then the audio tones would be passed to the radio, and then the radio would transmit those. So that simplifies things because you don't have to set up a dedicated transmit PTT line. So just thought I should mention that. This is N2RJ, pause free. All right. Now with that done, RTTY is one mode. You'll find the setup for RTTY where in the software you can set up different what you call macros, or you can just free type. But if you're using RTTY or RIDI as some people call it for DXing, you want to set up a macro basically where you can call CQ, where you can send your call sign a few times, because you want to send it a few times if you work in DX, because there might be QRM or there might be band noise, and then sometimes the decoding on the other end might not be perfect. This is another thing. When you're sending digital signals, sometimes they're not received perfectly on the other end, and we'll get into different ways of how that is mitigated. But in RTTY, basically you don't, if it gets garbled, it gets garbled, and you see that garbage on the screen, and it's up to you to filter out sense from nonsense. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind. And the other thing you need to keep in mind is that if you're using AFSK, it's very important to keep your audio levels driven properly. A method some people use, I find it kind of dubious, but I'm going to mention it anyway, is you watch the ALC on your radio, and you make sure the ALC is not deflecting too much. If it's deflecting too much, you know you're overdriving. Alright, so the other thing is on the receive end, you might have to adjust your your sound card level on a receive so that it's not what you call flat topping, where the signal is not overloading the software to the point where it just clips at the top and the whole signal appears like this one flat distorted tone. So anyway, alright, so we covered RTTY. A lot of DXpeditions use it because it's fast and it's not structured, so they could basically make contacts and increase their rate, and then people could work that that new entity. I see Bouvet Island is coming up. That one's going to be a dogfight. But you can work that new entity on RTTY. Okay, and you get credit for digital modes. So back to the ARRL. ARRL used to call the digital award, the RTTY, the RIDI DXCC. And then back, I think it was 2009 or so, the DX Advisory Committee of the ARRL changed the DXCC award from RIDI to digital to recognize the emergence of new digital modes. So, with that, let me pause again. Alright, so yeah, RIDI is not the only way you can do digital, okay? Another popular mode that's actually waned in popularity is PSK31. Now, PSK in general means phase shift keying. So basically, you have two tones, and you shift them in phase, and then you have 31 hertz of bandwidth, and then you can basically type on your computer, and then when you type on your computer, the other person sees it on the other end. And it was a very nice mode for chatting. So for that one, you need software such as, I use the software called FLDigi, and I'll throw up a link for FLDigi, and you can configure FLDigi to for a number of digital modes, and you can use that for digital modes where you chat, where you can actually have a rag sheet. So PSK31 is a popular one, and PSK31, there's also PSK63. Now the 63 gives you a little faster typing speed, but for most people 31 is fine. And they were actually, before the emergence of these new modes, people were on PSK all the time. So I sometimes still get on and I chat with people. Now the way a lot of people did that mode is that they would call CQ, somebody would answer, and then they use the macros, and they just spit out a whole file of, my equipment is this, I have this radio, I have this antenna, I have this computer, I have this coffee maker. It got kind of ridiculous. So, sometimes I try to chat with people, ask them how the weather is and that kind of stuff. And it was fun. You get to know people, and you have a nice little chat with them. Of course, typing it's a little slower. So that's another mode, and there are a number of these chat modes. Nisi and I actually we went on another mode called Olivia. Yeah, Olivia, right? It's a nice mode, and Olivia basically is a FSK mode where it would send tones at different frequencies, and then it would decode it. Now, Olivia is another nice chatting mode, and then all of these are actually still available in FLDigi. So here's the cool thing. You set up one software, you can then listen on all these different digital modes. You can even do CW, you can even listen to CW on FLDigi, I believe. So that describes the chatting mode. Now, if you have, if you want, you can also buy a software called Digital Master, which comes with Ham Radio Deluxe, and Ham Radio Deluxe actually, it's a paid package and it comes with support and all that stuff, but they've had some problems, so I stick with FLDigi. It seems to work. Alright. Alright, 33N, and I'll see you in NAQP. Alright. I think I may have timed out. But anyway. So everybody's good so far? Catherine, everybody's good so far?
Yep, doing good, Rhea. Thank you.
All right, I'll remind you that in the chat you can always on the do drop in chat you can actually ask any questions and I'll answer them real time. Okay, so yeah. So those once you set up FLDigi, again with FLDigi you have to set up your rig control. Now with FLDigi it's kind of important because you want to set up your frequency control in your rig. You have something called a CAT cable, which CAT stands for Computer Aided Transceiver. So basically your computer now would be able to send the frequency and the mode it's operating on, well the operational mode it's operating on, and then it would that would go to the software, and then the software would be able to the software would be able to I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. Yeah. Then. All right. Let me start over. Okay. So anyway, FLDigi, you want to set the CAT control so the software will be able to change frequency. It'll be able to record the frequency as well. So you do all your manipulation of your frequency from the software itself, rather than from the radio. And in some cases, remember I was telling you about the PTT, well, in some of these software you can actually set the PTT via the CAT command. Alright? So, it makes me laugh, Andrea. The way you do that is in the software it'll say send PTT via CAT command, and that'll do it. Okay, and the other connection you need, of course, is the PTT if you have them do that via CAT command, and then you need to select the sound card device. Now, if you're using a sound card interface, you need to select the proper one for the sound card interface, and you must do it for receive and transmit. Now, because if you do it for receive, you'll be able to receive, but if you do it for transmit, you might be transmitting over another device, and it will not go out over the air. So that's one of the more important things. Some of these can get pretty convoluted because FLDigi requires a separate setup for the CAT. Yeah, some of these get a little convoluted because FLDigi in particular, they want you to use an external module to connect to your radio, and it gets messy. The easiest one I found was FLRig, which is a program made by them, and that one you set up your rig in there, and then you set up FLDigi to connect to it, and you're good to go. So anyway, that covers that. And we move on to what I think is a hot topic of today. The other topic that people love to talk about, which is the JT modes. So, a little background on Joe Boonton Taylor, K1JT, and I am N2RJ. So Joe is a Jersey boy who is just wickedly smart, who discovered binary pulsars, and he was one of the first, I think the first to actually discover I think he did it along with a YL, not a ham, but her name will come to me. I just don't remember. So, Joe being a physicist, and he knows a lot about math and stuff, because to do that kind of work, you need to be good at math. And then Joe decided that, you know what, he'll also experiment with weak signal work. So I remember Andrea last week talking about weak signal work, where you have terrestrial weak signal work. So you have different types of weak signal operation. You have media scatter, where you're basically you're operating bouncing signals off the meteor trails. When the meteors enter the sky, they burn up the atmosphere and they leave behind a trail, and that trail is good enough to reflect some radio signals. But it does it only for an instant, and then it's also very weak. So you need to tailor, to use a pun, a transmission to take advantage of that. Now, you also have this nice big shiny signal reflector in space called the moon. So we have our own natural satellite. The moon is not made of cheese. It's made of rock. But you can reflect signals off or anything. So previously, why I mention all of this is that before computers began taking over the world, you had CW, and you would work these modes with CW. Yes, some people were able to do it with sideband, but you worked with CW. In particular, meteor scatter was the most entertaining and really amazingly, ingenious way that these people did it. Was that they would record a transmission in CW and speed it up really, really fast, and then transmit it multiple times. And then, by chance, it bounce off the meteor trail in the sky, and then it would be received on the other end, and then where they would record it on tape or computer later on and slow it down. So that way they get the signal transmitted at a high rate, and they get received. Well, that worked good for a while. It was quite ingenious, but then technology marches on. You had different pioneers of digital modes, and there was this guy, W7PUA, who he developed some modes to use with a software-defined kit radio that he developed. And then what his mode is, Bob Larkin is his name. He actually, these modes were basically the predecessors to the modern JT65, where they would send a series of slow tones, and then these tones would be different audio frequencies. So you have what you call frequency shift keying. Yeah, so they'd send out these tones, and they would send out the information over and over and over in what you call error correction, forward error correction, where you're basically sending. So let's see how best I can describe forward error correction. So if I say, let's say I had chicken soup for dinner, okay? I say that. And then I also say, I ate a meal in the evening, and it might have had chicken in it, and it had it's something like hot, and might have some broth. So basically, I send the main piece of information, and then I also send additional clues. So in case I miss the main piece, I would have clues to reassemble. So, for example, you could say Catherine wore a pair of blue jeans to hamvention. And then I would say, well, I saw Catherine. She was wearing a pair of pants. It was made of denim, and it's the same color as the sky. That, in a nutshell, is just what I did, a forward error correction, where I send additional bits of information that in case that I didn't hear the first part, I could always reconstruct it. So in these modes now, they send the same information over, but in different ways. And then the computer on the other end could receive most of it. It can receive all of it, and it'll get a perfect decode. It can receive most of it, and then reassemble, and then piece together things, clues, and then get back a signal that was missed. So on HF, you're talking to somebody and the band decides to fade out. Or you have interference. So you have noise. Maybe somebody started up a vacuum cleaner and it starts to ruin the entire HF band. So for moon bounce, there was a lot of signal loss where you're going from the Earth to the moon and back, and you're bouncing off a piece of rock. You're not bouncing off a satellite or, an artificial communication satellite or a piece of metal. You're bouncing off a piece of rock. So the path loss was immense. So they had to basically build in this error correction. All right, so why I mention this is because with the JT modes, it can take a very, very weak signal, and with that weak signal, it can, it can actually overcome, if you have a compromised antenna, you'll still be able to make contacts. If you have, low power, you can run 5 watts and work Australia, New Zealand. I worked New Zealand on 5 watts. And you can also, you can also work modes that are in varying band conditions. Like, for example, I actually worked Japan in broad daylight here. So I talked to Japan. I made a contact with Japan while it was broad daylight, and it wasn't even gray line, because usually you need gray line to work Japan. So the JT modes now use a software called WSJT, and WSJT stands for Weak Signals by Joe Taylor. And Weak Signals by Joe Taylor basically incorporates all of these modes. So Joe took Bob Larkin's work and made his own modes. So he fashioned what you call JT65, which JT meaning Joe Taylor, and 65 meaning 65 tones. So there are 65 tones, and the radio would, the software would send these tones in a different sequence over and over with the error correction, and then the error correction on the other end, it might receive some of the information and reassemble it. Right. So anyway, how do you do it? So the first things first you need to do before you even get any software, you need to do time synchronization, because these modes are timed. That's another way they ensure that the transmission is a little more reliable. So if you're not familiar, there's something called network time protocol, which means that the computer gets its time from the internet. So the first thing you do is you can get either of 2 pieces of software, because the built-in Windows time synchronization is not enough. My favorite to use is Mindberg. So if you look for Mindberg, it's Mindberg NTP. It's a software that will actually contact a number of different servers and do the time synchronization. And it's actually the better method, because it slowly steers the clock toward accuracy. The other one you can get is Dimension 4. Dimension 4 is popular because it's simpler, but by being simple, what it does is it steps the clock in big steps toward accuracy. So, so that software is Mindberg, and this one I put in chat is Dimension 4. So you can use either one. Only use one. Don't use more than one. And you set up your clock to synchronize. This is the first thing. The other software you need is WSJTX. Okay. Now, WSJTX is a software by Joe Taylor, and this actually allows you to do the digital modes. So I put the link. It's from the Princeton, from Joe Taylor's Princeton website, because he's a professor at Princeton University. Like, he's a Jersey boy, and he went back to Jersey to do, his work. Pause reset. All right. So once you get WSJTX, you have to do the setup where you actually you set up the sound card and you set up the radio, because you really do need cat control for this one, because what the software will do is it'll automatically tune the radio to the correct frequencies. So in regular digital modes, you do have like certain watering holes and frequencies that you would the chat modes, like for example Olivia and PSK31. Like normally you'd find people around 14.070, and I think 7.038 was one, and then there was also 7.070 as well on 40 meters and other bands. You could look it up. On JT modes, it's a little more rigid. You can technically do it anywhere in the band. On JT modes, generally you'll find everybody in the window, because everybody in the same window, because the signals are so narrow. You can have hundreds of QSOs in there. So the software actually comes preloaded with all the frequencies in. Once you set up the software, you set up the sound card and the serial port, the cat control, and your PTT. Now your PTT, once again, it might be by cat. All right, and I'm gonna see if I don't know if I'll be able to do it real time, but I will put a post that I put in a Flex community forum. Now it applies to basically Flex radios, but it's easy to adapt to different radios. So it'll go step by step in how to set up the WSJTX software. Okay. Now once you set up the software, you select a band. Right? You have to also make sure your audio level is good, because if you're overdriving, the received audio level should give you an easy thing to remember. It should give you a little less than a halfway point on a closed band, meaning that if you tune to anywhere in the radio spectrum as just noise, it should be about I would say about halfway, and that gives you a good level to decode. And then to transmit, you want to raise your level gradually. You want to make sure that you're not overdriving. Some people use the ALC method, but in reality, that's half reliable. As far as the way I do it, I transmit and I have I remotely monitor, but some people you can listen, and you can have somebody listen on the other end and see. But less is more. You set your audio level down to a lower level. Power levels is a little controversial. Some people can use a lot of power, but in reality you don't need to. You can use as little as 5 watts, you can use 35 watts, you can use 50 watts. The thing to keep in mind is that this thing will be transmitting for a long time, so it'll get your radio quite warm, so you want to keep the power down. Alright, we're almost near the end. So once you set that up, you can go about making QSOs. Now, the popular mode these days is FT8, developed jointly by Joe Taylor and Steve Frank. So in JT65, you're dealing with a number of exchanges. You're dealing with exchanges that will start out like something CQ, N2RJ, and my grid square. So my grid square is FN21. So it'll say CQ, N2RJ, FN21, and you'll see that on the screen. And then somebody might double-click me to reply. Like, for example, if Nisi decides to reply, it'll be N2RJ, K1ULN, FN42, I think she's in. And then I would give her a signal report. Now, the signal report's not 599. It's in decibels, so it'll be probably it'll be N2RJ. No, I'll be K1ULN, N2RJ minus 10, and then she'll give me one N2RJ, K1ULN minus 14, and then we exchange RRR for Roger, and then we exchange our 73. They didn't code 88 or 33 in there, which is unfortunate. The other thing to remember too is that you cannot deviate from these messages. You can actually do a free-form 13-character message, but beyond that, that's what you're stuck with. That's why it's just basic QSOs only. All right. The JT65 sequence is 43 seconds, I believe, 47 seconds, and then 13 seconds to make a decision as to your next transmission. And then FT8 is where you have 15 seconds and over. So you have 15 seconds per transmission. It's a lot faster. Now, the thing to remember with FT8 is you can use what you call auto sequence, where auto sequence would basically queue up all the exchanges for you. You click once, and it'll send a CQ, and then somebody just double clicks your CQ they see in their screen, and then it'll automatically send the signal report and the Rogers and the 73, and you don't have to do a thing. You can also get a piece of software called JT Alert, which will actually log directly to your logging software. Or when you're done, there's software generates an ADIF file, and the ADIF file you can import into your logging software. So anyway, I think that pretty much about covers it. There is so much. I did mention, okay, just 1 second. All right, I think that pretty much covers it. That is it. And this is the JT Alert. And I'll be posting a link to my setup guide for WSJTX, and I hope to see you in the on the air and on the digital modes. It's a lot of fun. You can work a lot of contacts towards your awards that way, and you can just see how far your signal goes. So I'll see you guys, see you ladies online, and then hopefully we can even chat on the chat modes too. All right, so back to net control. I know this was long. Thanks for the opportunity to explain the digital modes, and to RJ.
Well, thank you very much, Rhea. A lot of great information, a lot to digest, and so I'm really glad that Lauren, KC9ZHV, was able to live stream and record this net for us this evening. so that you ladies can go back and listen to it at any time, and you can also share this with other YLs in your club or anywhere that you know around the world that might be interested in learning more about digital modes. You can certainly point them to the YLOpNet YouTube channel, and they can listen to it. They don't even have to subscribe. They can just search for the YLOpNet YouTube channel. You can also find a link to it on my QRZ page, qrz.com, qrz.com, and just put AC4YL in the search. And I believe Melanie also has the links to both the Facebook group and the YouTube channel on her QRZ page as well. And if you ladies want to post it on yours, you're more than welcome to do so. Also, I'm sure some of you may have some questions, so would like to open it up to the group here. If you have a question for Rhea, please give us your call and wait, and I'll come back to you, and then you can talk directly to Rhea and then just send it back to Net Control. So who has a question for Rhea? This is AC4YL. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone at this moment, so I'll go ahead and ask a question for you, Rhea. I know ARRL has a book out for digital modes, because Beginner's Guide to Digital Modes. I forget the title off the top of my head, but are there any good basic intro to digital mode reading material that you would recommend, even if it's something that you have in your own blog? Or something that might help us get started in digital modes even further. Any recommendations that you have for us, Rhea?
Okay, this is N2RJ. Well, I actually did set up the, I posted my setup guide. It is for Flex, but it actually shows you how to set up for, it's common to all radios. I think the ARRL book is good. The new handbook has a lot of useful information about digital modes, but I don't really think there is any one resource out there for digital modes. So, you're going to have to, I think the best way to do it, there are a couple of groups online on Facebook. There is also the WSJTX user guide, where it'll show you how to get how to make most use of the software. You can print it out and take a read, and you can see. I just posted a link to that. So that is a good resource. Mostly, what you're going to do though is there's going to be a lot of discovery online and a lot of trial and error, and it's probably going to make some people angry sometimes, but that's learning. Back to you, Catherine, and to our...
Okay, awesome, Rhea. Well, thank you very much, and looking forward to checking out your setup guide link as well. So, really appreciate your presentation tonight, Rhea. Let's pause for a second on the questions. Margaret, AE7MB, if you're near the mic, are we going to attempt an HF net this evening? I know Ann had a meeting tonight, that's why she's not with us. Are we going to be doing an HF net? AE7MB, AC4YL. Okay, not hearing Margaret, so I don't know, perhaps she stepped away from the mic, so we'll look and see if she posts anything in the chat. Ladies, if you have a 20-meter capability and would like to try, connecting with each other over on 14.288 or thereabouts, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can stay here. This net will run for approximately another 30 minutes. So feel free to go over there, and we'll keep our eye on the chat for anything from Margaret on that. But okay, very good. So let's go back to see if anyone has any more questions about digital modes for RIA. Please call now, AC4YL.
KA1ULN. Awesome job, Maria. Good job. So I have a comment about, I love the digital modes. So with FLDigi, you can do CW. You can listen. My point is, you can listen to these things. You don't really have to transmit. You can listen to people doing CW and watching it. You can watch it on FLDigi. We put up the link for FLDigi. You can watch FLDigi. You can watch PSK. You know, you don't have to transmit yet. You just want to watch it. You can watch, you know, all those modes, and then you can watch the JT mode. You know, the WSJT pieces of software, the modes, like Whisper, like JT65, JT9, and FT8. So you can watch all those, you know, make sure you got your program right. If you load the program, FLDigi and WSJTX, load both of those programs, and you can actually watch it. You can test it just to make sure you got it right, and then you can watch the. You can receive all the communication that's happening and watch it, and you can watch and see how people communicate, how they receive and how they transmit. It sounds like a lot, but it really is easy. Just load the program that you got connected to your computer and your modem, Signal Link or Rig Blaster or what have you, and go. I got one more comment. Let me reset. So Ria gave a great presentation. So I just posted a link on both on the NFARL chat and here on Echolink. There's kb9ukd.com/digital has a really great chart of, I have one on my blog, but it's a great chart of saying that this is JT65, tells a little bit about JT65. This is how it sounds. And it puts up a sound of exactly how JT65 sounds. I don't know if you've heard that when you're scanning through the bands, but each and every mode sounds different, and that's because of the bits that are being passed down the line. But check out that URL. So it tells you what it is, and you can put the play, and you can hear exactly how it sounds. So when you tune in and you hear this noise, you can go to this URL and figure out what exactly it is, and then you fire up FLDigi and you try to receive some of that. So great net tonight. KA1ULN, back to net.
All right, awesome, Nisi. Thanks so much for all that great additional information, and that site's really cool. I'll have to check that out for sure. It's amazing. I don't know if any of the rest of you guys have done this. You most likely have, and when you just start tuning around and you you're down in the digital and CW area of the band, and you're like, wow, that sounds interesting. I'm not sure which mode that is, so that's really cool, Nisi. Thanks so much for the additional info, and please check out Nisi's blog when you have time. She's got a lot of great information on there as well, ka1uln.blogspot.com. So check that out when you have time as well. Lots of great links going on this evening, so we'll try to get all of those together and get them on the WildOpNet Facebook group, if not this evening, by the end of the weekend, so that you gals can check it out. So back to the group here. Anybody else have questions or additional comments for Rhea or the net in general with reference to digital modes?
I did have one comment, and to our guys.
Absolutely. Please, go ahead, Rhea.
So I put that pskreporter.info link in there, and that's important, because what you can do with that is, if you set up your software and you set up the sound card and you set up the cat interface without even transmitting, just leave it on your radio overnight. Then you go to PSK Reporter and you plug in your call sign, and you can see a map of all the stations that you have decoded. So you can actually see how far of signals you're trying to decode. And it surprised me. I was decoding China, I was decoding Thailand, I was decoding Japan, I was decoding Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and of course all over Europe and Russia and South Africa and Australia, New Zealand. So you'll be surprised at what you can do, and that'll probably give you some confidence to try working some of these rare entities when you're able to hear them, because when you can hear them, there's a good chance you can work them. Back to you, Catherine, and to RJ.
Wow, lots of great tools. Thank you for that additional one there, Rhea. That will definitely keep us busy. In case you missed it in the Echolink chat or the Do Drop In chat, there is no official HF net this evening. The band conditions just do not are not going to work and cooperate for us this evening. So thank you, Margaret, for letting us know that. But Rhea, that's a fantastic tool. It's a lot of fun to see things like that. I know something fairly similar that Melanie found is actually a website that you can go to and actually see kind of a map of what stations are working who based on, I believe, spotting, current spotting, and it's really neat to see, where signals are going that way as well. So those kinds of tools are fun. I think those are exciting, and it's neat to see, but even more so if it's from your station and seeing what stations you're able to decode. And I see some comments in reference to band conditions, and that's why I'm really glad that we're discussing digital modes, because currently band conditions and where we are in the solar cycle are unfortunately most likely not going to improve much. I did see a graph recently, and I want to dig a little bit more into it, but on the one I did come across thus far in my extremely limited research, it looks like it may be another year to 2 years before we really start seeing any improvement. And it was kind of fun to look at that chart, because I first got licensed in 2013, in September of 2013, and band conditions were fairly good then, and improving a little bit before starting on their decline, and definitely a difference. Let me pause for a reset. And it was interesting to kind of see that graphed out because I remember when I first got licensed and I was first getting on HF, being able to work countries very easily and hear them fairly easily. A lot on 20 meters, 10 meters was just wide open a lot of the time. So worked a lot on 17 meters. The bands were just really, pretty open and working well. And then, it just kind of seemed that over time it just got worse and worse, where it was harder and harder to hear people and not copy and not really hear a lot of activity, at least on the single sideband side of it. So this is a great opportunity for you gals to jump in and start learning and getting involved in the digital side, especially when band conditions aren't great, because you can still make awesome contacts and get your DXCC using digital modes with very low power, and that's what makes it all that more exciting. So again, thank you so much, Rhea, for the presentation and all the great links and information, and for all you other ladies for your additional comments. I see Melanie copied some links in there as well in the chat. So again, we'll try to compile all of those for you gals and get them on the Facebook group. Let's open it back up and see if anybody else has any additional comments or questions with reference to digital modes.
Yeah, of course I have something else to say. KA1ULN. Yeah, the JT modes don't care about propagation at all because it's not the same. Not the same. You look at the if you look at whispernet.org, wstrnet.org. Look at that and look at on 10 meters, you would not believe it. You think 10 meters is dead? You think 20 meters is dead when you look at a propagation chart? You look at a dxheat.com, you see nothing. But if you look at it, if you look at a Whisper 10 meter map, it shows you all the communications. Graphically, it's amazing. You would not believe that it's so active, and it's just because of that net. That's why the JT65s, JT9, FT8, that's why FT8 is so popular. I highly recommend downloading WSJTX. If you have any problem, just put it out there on one of the Facebook pages or send any of us email, and we'll help you out, no problem. KA1ULN. Don't be afraid of it. It works, and you'll be amazed. You don't have to talk. That's the good part to me. You don't have to talk. Back to you, Kat.
Well, thank you so much, Nisi. Great info. And, it's funny. You're right. You don't have to talk. So that makes contesting even more fun, right? Because you don't have to worry about making sure you have all your mint candies and your water so you could keep your voice going. You just take a break and operate some digital for a while. So thanks, Nisi. Appreciate the comments. Let's see. Melanie has a comment, so let's pass it over to her. AG4YL, please go ahead.
Good evening. This is AG4YL. Hi, Jenny. I got you in the log. Sorry, my computer just did one of those weird kerchunk tones. I think one of my rig controlled and realized I didn't have a rig turned on. So I posted this www.dxmaps.com /spots /map yada yada yada. You can go to dxmaps.com and figure it out. I think a lot of that stuff equals, or a lot of the things that I chose. But the nice thing about the dxmaps.com is that you can click on what modes you want. And like Nisi was saying, I clicked on, you can click on, phone, CW, digital, or digital on Whisper. And when you just click it on phone or CW, phone's really bad. You put it on digital Whisper and look at the map of the world, you can't see some areas for all the lines that are crisscrossing. It's pretty intense. So yeah, there is a lot going on out there, and that dxmaps.com, it's a lot of fun. You can even pull it down to in the last 15 minutes or something like that. You can put on the gray line overlay, which I like doing. But it's crazy. There's so much going on out there right now with the Whisper and digital. You can click on these call signs and highlight them and see what's going on. So check it out. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. Great presentation, Rhea, and I copied a lot of those links you were talking about over here in the Echolink chat as I had been downloading and working on all that over the last week. This is AG4 Bio. Back to Net Control.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Melanie, for that. I knew you'd come back with that website for us. So very cool. Yeah, neat. So lots of activity going on. So the bands aren't dead. Everybody's just doing digital and CW right now. So check it out. Cool. All right. Any other questions or comments on digital mode? And if not, we'll pass it back to Melanie to tell us a little bit of an update on WWFF and KFF. So any other questions or comments on digital modes? Okay, not hearing any, so if you gals think of some, please, again, post them to the Facebook group. And thank you so much, Rhea and Nisi, for volunteering to be our Elmiras with digital. We appreciate it, and being willing to be there to answer our questions. So thank you so much. And Rhea, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to put that together for us and educate us a bit on digital. So thank you. All right, Melanie, I'll pass it over to you now for the update we didn't get to last week. AG4YL, AC4YL with the group.
Okay, well, I'll try to make this as quick and painless as possible. Most of you on here that have been on the net for a while know that in 2016, Catherine and I were very active in national parks on the air. And toward the end there on the NPOTA Facebook page, people were making comments. You know, they were very sad to see NPOTA end. It was just celebrating the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. And at the end of 2016, that was it. People were sad, and I kept seeing these comments that said, hey, well, at least we have POTA, any parks on the air. So I did some digging, I did some research, and I found some interesting websites, and I have talked to you all about them. I didn't get to do as much this past year, 2017, as I wanted to with it, but there's a thing called the Worldwide Flora and Fauna, or WWFF. This is an entity that's been around for a while. Their motto, if you will, mission statement is make nature your shack. And that's sort of the whole point behind, oh boy, I can never get this to work right. There we go. That's the whole point behind Worldwide Flora and Fauna. And they're an international site. they have a lot of national subdivisions, if you will, of WWFF. That's a big kind of overseeing program. For countries that have enough participation, interest, and people willing to take it on because it is volunteer, in having their own programs, those countries kind of take care of their own logs, have their own people behind it, and here in the United States, it's KFF. Let me pause for a reset. Now, KFF is is overseen by WWFF. KFF is the U.S. arm of Worldwide Flora and Fauna. Many countries have an arm of Worldwide Flora and Fauna. Some don't, and they'll just answer just to WWFF themselves. I have pasted links for both WWFF and KFF. So, now how does this tie into Parks on the Air? Well, if you went to, in the past, meaning last year, if you went to the KFF site, it also said KFF POTA, and it said inspired by the work of the ARRL and POTA. In 2016, they've developed this site and sub-program and everything like that. And what they did was the WWFF and its subsidiaries has its own set of rules. It's how they do things and been doing it for years. KFF decided that they were going to offer their own awards. They were going to model a lot of their rules after National Parks on the Air and some of their award structure, and basically sort of went renegade. And in December, it all kind of came to a boiling point. The WWFF said, if you're going to be a subsidiary, if you're going to represent KFF, that's a part of WWFF, you have to follow the WWFF rules and how we have things set up. That's how every other country is doing it. And you can't do it different. And if you want to do it different, you need to make your own organization then and represent. And so Parks on the Air broke apart from KFF and now has their own. So now we have, to confuse issues, we have KFF being an arm of WWFF, and then there's a separate Parks on the Air. Let me pause again for reset. So, while I had said in the past I had made reference to KFF POTA, it's now KFF or POTA. And when you're in spotting sites and you see these, if you see a KFF reference and then you see or hear them calling Parks on the Air, you need to ask them if they are working both programs, because those are two separate programs now. I've done this in contacts, and if they say yes, then go ahead and work them and log them, or work them and give them the credit. You don't have to log them. But if you have an affinity toward one or the other, there's Parks on the Air and there's KFF. You can do them both if you want to, but they have different sets of rules. So understand the rule differences, and they probably have different ways that they're going to add sites to activate moving forward. So just wanted to let everybody know there's been a lot of talk about what's going on with that and what's happening, and confuse things by I hope I didn't confuse things by bringing this up, but I did just want to make people understand that Parks on the Air and KFF, if they had been looking into those programs or hearing about those programs, those are two separate programs with two separate sets of rules. And if you have sites that are recognized by both programs and you want to activate a site and call for both those programs, and so people working both those programs can and you can, that's fine. There's no law against that at all, but they are separate and they are different entities. So I just wanted to explain it, and I will be supporting. I get too confused to handle more than one program, so I'll be working with WWFF-KFF, which is the program I kind of started out with. So there we go. That's what I had to say about that, and I'll pass this back over to Catherine in Net Control. This is AG4YL. Thanks for hearing me out.
Okay, very good. Melanie, thanks so much for giving us that information as well for any of you ladies that were looking to go activate some parks this year for fun to practice your mobile operating. So just some updated information on that. Check out their website for more information, of course. As far as this weekend, the North American QSO Party CW is this weekend. So for those of you that are learning CW or just want to get out there and listen, there will no doubt be quite a few CW operators on this weekend. So I encourage you to tune around and check that out. Also the SKCC Weekend Sprintathon, so there'll be even more CW operators out there. So encourage you to check those out. And we have some more events coming up later this month, which we will talk about next week. We have Winter Field Day coming up, and I believe ARRL RIDI contest, I think, is coming up this month as well. I have some catching up to do. I saw it somewhere in an email. So we'll talk about those next week or the week after, and get you gals familiar with the information around those. And again, thank you so much, Rhea, for your fine presentation. And we have reached the end of the net this evening. So before we close, do we have any other YLs with us who have not yet checked in and would like to do so? Please call now and give us your call sign, your first name, and your current location. This is AC4YL.
This is WA4YL saying 33 and catch you next week. 33, everyone.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate that. Not hearing anyone else checking in, so we'll go ahead and close out the net. Again, please don't forget to visit the WYL-OpNet Facebook group. Post your questions there, or any other comments or links that you found helpful to you in any ham radio topic, whether it's digital mode, CW, learning CW, learning digital, any of that, antennas, anything that you find useful, interesting, or your questions. Please post them in the Facebook group. We'd like to again thank Lauren, KC9ZHV, for live streaming and recording this net and making it available through our WYL-OpNet YouTube channel. We'd also like to thank ALARA for the use of this Echolink conference node, the North Fulton Amateur Radio League for their do-drop-in chat room, and all who are linked and listening for your ongoing support of this net. This is Catherine, AC4YL, closing out the WYL-OpNet and returning the ALARA Conference back to normal use. 33 ladies, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Take care.